Hi there, thank you for joining us for today's webcast, How No-Code, Low-Code Can Boost Supply Chain Agility and Resiliency, produced by CIO and GEP. I'm Sarah Kirk, Content Strategist for CIO Marketing Services. Today's event is possible thanks to our sponsor, GEP. We have a great discussion ahead of us, but before we meet our speakers, I'd like to remind our audience that after viewing the webcast, you can download today's presentation and some other great materials from our sponsor on your player. And now I'm happy to introduce today's guests. With us today are Alex Zong, Director of Product Marketing at GEP, and Suprakash Das, Vice President of Platform Engineering at GEP. Alex, Das, thank you both so much for being here. We're thrilled to have you. Before we begin the discussion, could you tell the audience a bit about yourselves? Alex, would you like to go first?
I'm Alex Zong. I'm heading up the product marketing function for GEP. And I've been in supply chain space for about 20 some years for both transformation and operations as a practitioner as well as solution provider. That's a little bit about me. So I'll turn it over to Das.
Thanks, Alex. Hi, Sarah. Excited to be here today. I'm Suprakash Das. I go by Das. Unlike Alex, I'm a novice when it comes to the supply chain industry, but I've spent the last 2 decades in low-code, no-code software development, and I'm VP of Platform Engineering here at GP.
Thank you both so much and welcome again. I know we have a great presentation ahead of us, so let's dive in and get started. Let's start by discussing the current landscape of today's supply chain environment. We've experienced a dramatic disruption in the supply chain environment due, of course, to the COVID-19 pandemic. And in today's environment, supply chain modernization is key. In fact, GEP and Foundry recently conducted a study to better understand what senior executives, in the case of this study, that meant VPs and above, in various industries consider to be the most pressing current supply chain challenges and how they're using or how they plan to use no-code or low-code solutions to drive business growth. So what you see here is what we found is that leaders prioritize improving resiliency, improved partner integration, and meeting security and compliance as top focus areas of supply chain modernization. Alex, what's your take on this finding?
Sure. So this slide actually showed us some very important insights about supply chain modernization. And I think there are 2 critical perspectives if you look at the slide, especially the top 2 lines there. One is about resiliency, and the second one is about partnership. Resiliency has been definitely a priority in the last 2 years, and GEP constantly conducts surveys with major organizations. Almost all our surveys in the last 2 years indicated that resiliency has become a priority for supply chain. Initially, I think it's okay when people think resiliency as increasing inventories and adding redundancies, but that's not sustainable for long term, right? So for longer term, I think we should really understand the definition of resiliency, which we define as the systematic capability for a company and business respond to external disruptions in a sustainable manner with very limited impact to cost and quality. And so, as you can see, resiliency is definitely a systematic capability for longer term. Now, to really to achieve resiliency, it is very important to know that it is not just done within the company's 4 walls. It has to be done with all the partners, external ecosystem partners. And so that's why collaboration is super important. And it's not hard to understand the second items here. Improved integration with supply chain partners become almost as equal important as resiliency. Just taking these 2 very important items from this slide would be very valuable to us. And I'd like to use a little bit analogy here. During COVID, we almost all of us paid attention to our well-being, right? And I think just looking at the 2 items, I think similar to individual, right? to our well-being, number one, I think individually we need to be healthy, whether it's resilience or flexibility, we need to be there, but also we need to have good relationship with other people, right? So then definitely those are the two very basic things we need to accomplish to claim that we are in well-being. That's the some insights I get from this slide. So Sarah, back to you.
Great, thank you, Alex, for that. We also found that 91% of respondents reported that they find it challenging to keep up with the demand for new supply chain workflow configurations and capabilities. What kind of insights can you share on this finding?
Yeah, sure. I think, Sarah, you indicated very well in the beginning about our environment being disruptive. And I think that's definitely true, not only these years, today, but also I think will be the similar situation into the future, right? If you just look at the extreme weather conditions that we are having these days, just in the last few weeks, then we'll know. I mean, disruptive environment will continue to be the case. So for business to survive and to succeed in this disruptive environment, it is very important also to know that we are in a very process-oriented business world, right? It is within our enterprise processes is everywhere and without, with our partners. So how can we actually change our processes to cope with the external changes? Very important. On one end, we definitely cannot be static, right? Just make all the processes static, then, they won't work. And on the other end, we need to make some effective changes instead of random changes, right? So here, as we can quickly discover that speed becomes super important when we look at processes changes and make our overall internal business more resilient.
Okay, great. Thanks, Alex. That was great. Let's take a minute to discuss this next finding as well, where we see that 97% of survey participants said that they'd find it valuable to give non-technical users the ability to adjust or build workflows themselves. How do you interpret this stat? What would you say next steps could be for executives?
Sure. So let me first quote a Gartner recent report. It's their 2023 prediction report. One key point they make in that report is that only 10% of companies believe technology is not a source of competitive advantage. And over 1/3 of companies said it is critical for business growth. So as we can clearly see that technology is the key to address current issues. But I think also a very important point is how we can reduce dependency on the traditional IT process and IT function. And that's why in this survey, right, we can see almost, all people, almost all, 97% is a very high number, right? Almost all the senior leaders seeing that giving non-technical users who are in supply chain, procurement, and so forth, giving them ability to adjust and build workflows, right? Which is the workflow, which is to enable the processes, right? Themselves is becoming so important. And I think, just on that point, Das, my dear colleague here, actually is the expert in this space and have been done a wonderful work helping companies to accomplish that. So Das, over to you and share your insight, please.
Thanks, Alex. So I'd say low code, no code as an industry was kind of gaining steam over the last few years, but really COVID turbocharged the space. And then closely followed on the heels of an energy crisis, climate change, war in Europe, energy prices, and a receding economy. All of this has really turbocharged low code, no code as sort of a critical part of your IT strategy. So I have been doing this for almost 2 decades, but for folks who are not intimately familiar with what low-code development is, it's an approach to allow non-technical users, we call them citizen developers, who are essentially domain experts, who understand the business, who understand the business needs, but haven't been trained as software engineers. And the low-code space allows these domain experts to contribute to business agility. So think of this as a design environment where you can drag and drop components, pre-existing components, and put together a business workflow or design a new screen. So think of it as click versus code. Now, low code does not mean eliminating IT or bypassing IT, right? What it means is that you bring more people into the fold, people who, again, are not trained as software engineers, and it enables an organization to be agile. And now I think of agility as sort of two things. One is the ability to respond to change, whether that is external change or the change needed for the organization to be competitive. And there's a second aspect, which is being able to iterate. So you never get anything right the first time you try it. So the ability to make rapid change, to improve on a regular basis till you get something right. Those are the two dimensions of agility. And I think those are the key capabilities that a low-code, no-code platform gets you. It frees up IT to focus on some of the more mission-critical capabilities, while you have a much larger base of users who are able to contribute to capabilities involving your technology.
All right, that's great, Das. I think absolutely thank you for giving this clear definition and a little bit history about low-code, no-code. It's definitely helpful for our listeners. But I think, could you give a solid, real-world example that which can help us to understand really how low-code can work for supply chain people?
Absolutely, Alex. So, we talked about the supply chain industry and the disruptions that the industry is experiencing. One of the a need that you'll hear about all the time is around sustainability. How do you ensure that your supply chain is sustainable? It's not enough for you to just be on time. Now you need to be, look at the overall impact of the climate with everything else that is going on around us. So it's whether it's a business need or it's a compliance need, sustainability is on everyone's mind these days, right? So let's take a concrete example where you have the business. In this example, Robert, we'll call this person Robert, comes to the team and says, look, we need to have not just a list of suppliers, but we also have to have their sustainability scores before we can choose one, right? And Karen, our illustrative citizen developer here, understands the problem and is a domain expert and has a design environment where she is able to take this business need and, without going back to the IT department, will probably tell them to come back in 6 months or 9 months and figure out a way to solve this problem. So you brainstorm with the business. How do we do this? How do we get a sustainability score for our suppliers? We do some little bit of research. We look at what capabilities are available in the market, and she finds that there are vendors like EcoVadis who actually make this information available to you via integrations, and they have a large base of scores that they make available for their supplier ecosystem. And so she finds that without writing any code, she can integrate with EcoVadis and pull in a sustainability score for the suppliers. She can take that back to the business and show Robert that it's with just a few clicks, you can now make that visible as a business user, be able to use a sustainability score to pick your supplier. Again, no IT was necessary, right, to unblock this critical business need. You didn't have to go begging to IT and wait for a backlog. It was a quick change with drag and drop capabilities to be able to integrate with the supplier, or I'm sorry, EcoVadis, a third-party vendor, pull in a a sustainability score, and be able to view that. Does that add up, Alex?
Yeah, that's a great example. Thanks, Das. I think a lot of customers actually I talk to, actually they are under pressure of reporting ESG, sustainability, scope 3 type of thing. And most of them in their current technology environment, they just can't do it. I mean, it's not there, right? So the example you give really help us understand how quickly and easily using low code, no code, right? This kind of very important capability can be accomplished. So that's great. And also, I think, through this illustration, I think I understand the benefit of low code, no code. But I do want to kind of clarify, verify with you. I mean, is that, oh, I see. So let's look at the slide, right? This one actually, I think, compare between with low code and without low code, right? The low code, no code actually is I think it's helping us to get less dependency on IT department, and so less burden for IT department as well. And if you look at without low code, no code, right, on the right hand side, obviously you can see the lengthy process, the cost is high, user experience is poor, and there are many bottlenecks. But with low code, no code, I think the situation is very different. And there you can really see it. The cost is being reduced, speed is being improved, and obviously overall systematic capabilities, including the complexity, is being reduced and collaboration being improved. So I see actually a great benefit using low code, no code. Am I right, Das?
Yeah, absolutely. Absolutely, Alex. I mean, if there was a call to action that I'd leave for the audience here, I mean, the next slide gives us a really great picture of kind of where the industry is headed, where senior technical leadership, what they're thinking about, what's top of mind, right? So more than 50% are using low code, no code today, 55%. Another 35% are looking to take that up or make use of this technology in the next year, right? That's 90%. And another 5% are thinking about making a plan to adopt it, right? So all I'd say is don't be left behind. This train is leaving, and think of it as the way to accelerate your business, provide business agility and resilience to your business. Tech shortage, the developer shortage for top talent is not going anywhere. And so this is a great tool to have in your toolkit.
Yeah, I like that. What you said, don't be left behind, right? And you look at the slide, actually only about 2% of people probably will be left behind if they don't take action. So that's a good thing. Sarah, I'll be back to you. Let's continue with the survey outcome.
Yeah, thanks, Alex. Those are really great points. And looking back at our survey results, we did find that more than half of our respondents reported to value improving agility, while about 47% value improving productivity when they're assessing the potential advantages of low code, no code solutions. So from each of your perspectives, what does this information, what do these stats mean to you?
Okay, I can take it first. So I think this slide actually really confirmed what we discussed, the value, right? The advantage that low code, no code can give us. And if you look at the slide, I think the benefit, the advantage areas almost everywhere. It's very broad, right? Covering almost all the areas. But just look at the top one, right? Obviously improving agility, improving speed. What speed we said is very important factor. So improving that and increasing productivity, which is also a very, very important key aspect in operations, right? So definitely help, both speed, productivity in the operations, but also I see another item in terms of improving innovation. Innovation is key for business growth. So low code, no code, I'm very glad seeing, how the senior leaders respond to this in terms of they are seeing the advantage in both operation space and also business growth. Das, what insight do you have?
I think you covered it beautifully, Alex. I mean, these findings really sort of highlight what we've been talking about, enabling a larger set of users, domain experts, to contribute to the process of moving the business forward. That's really what this slide is saying. Agility, productivity. Move fast, move quickly, iterate, deliver.
Yeah, that sounds very IT, huh? That's great. I mean, that capability is being adopted by the business users through this low-code, no-code capability. That's great. Sarah, let's continue.
Yeah, thanks, Das. Great point. And likewise, we're seeing here that leaders are seeing the connection between analytics and no code, low code. So Alex, could you speak on this data point a bit?
Yes, and again, I think we see many areas, right, that low code, no code can provide value. But I just want to pick really the one is quite, leading the path here, which is data analytics. As we know, in today's business environment, data is the king, right? So getting data, turn data into insight, into decision making, into actions, are critically important. And yet data also, we have some challenges. Obviously, data is very dynamic in the business world. It keeps changing, coming from different places, right? And also data could be very, spread out, from different functions, different data sources, right? And so really getting data, connecting data and pulling data together, providing insights is not easy. I'm very glad to see that the senior leaders recognize this challenge in business could be addressed by low-code, no-code capability. And so I think, this could be very promising using low-code, no-code, right? And in terms of being applied in the data analytics space, connect data, to analyze data, to publish data to the business users, and quickly, take actions by these insights. So this is almost perfect to me. Sarah, again, back to you.
Yeah, that's great. And speaking of, these challenges, improving onboarding partner experiences and making existing processes scalable, we see are of great importance to today's leaders. So can you speak about how low code can address these needs as well?
Yeah, I don't know if everyone still remember early when we talked about the survey, we said resiliency and partnership, right, being very key for modernization. And I think this is a very good kind of echoing point here, as we can see the leaders do recognize that partnership and collaboration is very important. And that's why simple to onboard partners become a very important capability to leverage this low-code, no-code. The rest of the bars, I can summarize it as compatibility, scalability, simplicity, accessibility, and so forth, right? And if you look at all these key features are actually contributing to resiliency. And so bingo, I think here we see that what business leaders see very important for modernization of supply chain actually could be answered by low-code, no-code. And those actually are very important, capabilities that we need to develop through low-code, no-code. I think this is absolutely a very important, confirmation, right, from what we discussed. I'll come back to you, Sarah.
Yeah, really well said, Alex. Thank you for that. And thank you both for being here with us today and sharing your insights. Unfortunately, we are about out of time for today, but I'd like to invite you each to share some final thoughts with our audience. Alex, you want to go first? Share some final thoughts?
Sure, Sarah. So hope today's webinar can help each of our listeners to have a good understanding of what is low-code, no-code, and why it is so clearly the direction for the future, right? That's very important to know.
Yeah, I think, as the last few years have made clear, change is inevitable and it's only accelerating, and a low-code, no-code platform ability allows you to respond to change. And it's a invaluable tool to have in your toolkit.
Great. Well, thank you both. I love that, Das, the tool in the toolkit. Thank you both so much. And thank you to our audience for tuning in and joining us today. We'll leave you with those final thoughts from Alex and Das as we close out our webcast, how no-code, low-code can boost supply chain agility and resiliency. Don't forget that you can find today's presentation along with some other great materials from our sponsor GEP in your console. And thank you once again to our sponsor GEP for making this possible, and to our wonderful speakers, Alex Zong, Director of Product Marketing for GEP, and Suprakash Das, Vice President of Platform Engineering at GEP. For CIO Marketing Services and GEP, I'm Sarah Kirk. Thank you so much for joining us.